Comics Plus, what is going on, Akasan? By popular demand, here's Kevin Feige, Part 2, The Future of the MCU. MCM? Rotten Tomatoes don't miss today.
Shang-Chi, as I'd said, is a movie that I think first ended up on a list of wouldn't it be great if list. Wouldn't it be great if we could do this as a movie probably 20 years ago, because it's a great story of a young man that realizes his father is essentially one of the world's greatest supervillains, one of the world's greatest criminals, and how do you process that, and how do you deal with that as a child, and how do you evolve beyond that, and the heroism needed to break free of that and grow beyond that, and even in our film to realize that there are many sides to all stories, and the world's perception of his father and his perception of his father is more complex than perhaps he initially thought. That was a great driving story for us that we wanted to explore someday. Looking for a filmmaker to do it was obviously, as it always is, important, and Destin Cretton coming in and again dedicating his talents. He's an amazing filmmaker who does amazing movies that have been on the smaller budgeted size compared to a big Marvel movie, but coming in and giving his personal vision to this story of this father and son, and really this family, was very special. And then how we could find somebody to play Shang-Chi was his biggest question when he signed up as director. Our producer Jonathan Schwartz and our casting director Sarah Finn looked at hundreds of people, and Simu came up relatively late in the process, when you just start to get to that point of maybe it's not going to happen. Because what you want is everybody in your inner circle, the producers, the filmmakers, to see somebody and go, look at each other and go, we found this person. This is the one. We hadn't had that on Shang-Chi.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of glad the fact maybe that I don't know anything about Shang-Chi is like, I'm not actually, kind of with Black Widow, same thing. I was like, I haven't really been that hype about it. Like, it looks interesting, but not like, I'm not overwhelmingly anticipating it. Same as in Eternals at this moment in time. So it'll be interesting to see how that attaches, if it attaches to me later down the line.
At this point,
because Feige is hyping it up. He's a hype master right now, but I'm just like, all right.
And Simu came in, and Sarah Finn had seen him before and brought him in again, and he did a great reading with Destin. He then did a great chemistry read with Aquafina, who's gracious enough to do that. And I will say, he, a little bit was, who is this fellow? Let's look him up. That's what you do nowadays. You look up, who is this guy? And he did have a infectious personality online in the way he interacted with the world and with fandom of his show that he was doing in Canada at the time, and with a sports team that he was a fan of that was doing well when I happened to search him. So he's kind of the real deal. And bringing a new Marvel hero into the fold is never easy, and always is a lot of pressure on us, and I'm sure on the actors. But Simu has pulled it off in ways that, again, I'm very excited for audiences to finally see in September.
All right.
Throughout my life,
oh, that's coming up real soon too.
Gave our family power.
Can I get that on Disney Plus?
Well, that's what's fun about the MCU at this stage, is we can do something like Shang-Chi, introducing a brand new hero into the MCU and into the world at large. But that subtitle and the Legend of the Ten Rings actually connects it back to the very beginning.
Right, because I'm about
the Ten Rings being the organization that kidnapped Tony Stark at the very beginning of Iron Man 1. And that organization was inspired by a character called the Mandarin in the comics. And going back to Iron Man 1, we've been talking about when do we bring this character to the screen?
Talk about Iron Man 3.
Only wanted to do it when we felt we could do it supreme justice and really showcase the complexity of this character, which frankly we couldn't do in an Iron Man movie, because an Iron Man movie is about Iron Man. An Iron Man movie is about Tony Stark. So Shane Black, in his film and his script that he co-wrote, came up with this fun twist that we love to this day, and it turned out to be Trevor Slattery. Just because that version wasn't real didn't mean there's not a leader of the Ten Rings organization, and that is who we meet for the first time in Shang-Chi. And again, talking about actors making these characters come to life, Tony Leung playing Shang-Chi's father and the leader of the Ten Rings is another pinch yourself dream come true moment, because he's one of the best actors of our time, and very excited to have him introduced to, I hope, a whole new fan base who might not be aware of his spectacular work that he's done.
Okay.
You got this.
Thank you.
We just recently released the final trailer for Shang-Chi, the end of which had a character that looked very.
That was
some
the
fans
final
said this
trailer?
looks like a character they hadn't seen in many years, named the Abomination, fighting a character that looks like Wong. And I can say that the reason it looks like that is because that is Abomination fighting Wong. Yes.
Hey.
And again, a fun thing to have a character that we haven't had on screen in over a decade show up.
Damn, Wong is fighting for that sandwich money, dude. Like, yo.
Again in the MCU, and to see fans on that little tag of the trailer recognize that and embrace that is great fun.
Throughout the years, we have never interfered.
I heard a pretty good theory is the reason the reason the Eternals interfering now is because of the multiverse explosion.
Till
Chloe had expressed interest in Marvel many years ago, even
Really?
when Brad Winderbaum, our producer on Black Widow, was looking for a filmmaker. Her name came up. She'd done a great film called The Rider, and she ended up not coming in on that film, I don't believe, and we were very lucky to get Kate Shortland to direct that movie at Scarlett's suggestion. But when we were working on Eternals, and our producer Nate Moore was coming up with this pitch to really embrace one of Jack Kirby's greatest creations for Marvel, amongst all of his great creations. But the Eternals, this race of immortal beings who've been on Earth for millennia, is one of his best. And he asked Chloe to come in and meet, and they really just clicked on this notion of a history of humanity and what it means to be human, and the viewpoint of that through these characters, the Eternals. And she came in with a pitch that got into visuals, which was beautiful, but more importantly into these characters. These
I could see that,
10
Evil.
new characters into the world, which is a very difficult thing to do. And she embraced that challenge and had a unique viewpoint for every single one of them. And I'm happy to say that from that initial pitch and meeting to near final version of the film where we are now, she has both won a handful of Academy Awards in between and delivered on her promise of what the Eternals could be. And I look forward to people seeing that one as well.
Did you guys hear that? Wait, did you so is somebody actually interviewing this dude, and then the audio just they just legit cut out the guy's questions? You can hear the guy in the
Between and delivered on her promise of what the Eternals could be. And I look forward to people seeing that one as well.
That's funny.
You, my sons.
All right, I want to know.
Remember this place. Home.
It was always our
Here we
hope
go.
at Marvel Studios to be able to pull off even a little bit in a cinematic form what publishing had been able to do in the comics for 70 plus years, and that is everything from the genius of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all of the spectacular artists and writers, is that they can tell, honestly, stories as big as the Big Bang and the foundation of the universe itself and the foundation of reality, and tell something as small and moving as, Peter Parker's origin story, or that moment in the Loki series when Tom Hiddleston is watching himself in clips from Endgame. It is so heartbreaking. It is so moving. Well, that show also has space lizards and deals with time itself. It is both that makes Marvel Marvel. It is being able to do the world outside your window on a very personal and emotional level, and come at it from a viewpoint that hopefully makes you think about your place in the grander scheme of reality in the universe. And speaking of Eternals, I've seen seen pictures of Jack Kirby at his little drawing desk in his house, and thinking the imagination of that man pouring out onto that page. And now the incredible artists led by Chloe doing it in cinematic form is amazing. It's bringing the human imagination to life on a personal level and a cosmic level that makes Marvel, I think, what it is. There was a time when it looked like Marvel Studios would not be involved in Spider-Man movies going forward for Sony. It was only a few months, but it was an emotional few months for, I think, all of us on all sides, and a very public few months for whatever reason.
For whatever reason. What are you talking about, man? I still remember. Yo, that was a very upsetting time, I think, for everybody, because I will never forget at that moment in time when around that time when that happened. That was also the same time where I think what did they call that convention, the D23 convention, the Disney thing, and somebody put up a mural of Peter Parker, Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Put up a mural right next to the convention center with some flowers and a candle like he died. That was rough, man. That was really rough. But yeah, interesting.
But yes, I had thought if it were going, I always want to look at the bright side. And the bright side was we got to make two great Spider-Man movies with Amy Pascal and John Watts and Tom Rothman and Tom Holland. And I was very proud of that and very happy at that. Of course, wanted it to continue, but always want to be happy with what we have instead of upset with what we don't. Luckily, Tom Rothman and Bob Iger and Alan Horn and Alan Bergman and Tom Holland himself all realized, wouldn't it just be more fun if we just kept doing it? Let's not get business or politics in the way, because the deal always started with Amy Pascal and I having nothing to do with numbers or contracts or politics. It had.
And let's not forget that Amy Pascal actually threw a sandwich at Kevin Feige decades and decades ago. Just FYI, y'all.
Had to do with story and a love of Spider-Man and Peter Parker and the Marvel Universe, and it thankfully has continued like that, and that's where we find ourselves now.
Michael Morbius.
Oh shit!
Doing the whole good guy thing.
We are diving into this. Let's
I don't
go.
want to obviously talk about rumors or speculation on what could happen, what couldn't happen, as it relates to any characters that Marvel Studios hasn't brought to the screen yet. But I will say what I've always said, which is, having been in Marvel for 20 years, I wouldn't dismiss anything, or I wouldn't rule anything out. When and how and where remains to be seen. It could be, any rumor that you read online could happen anytime between tomorrow and never.
Get down here and fight!
The mirror image. You can't affect the real world in here. Who's laughing now?
I spoke earlier about everything we do at Marvel Studios is from the point of view of the audience, and how do we make the audience feel one way, or how do we evoke an emotion out of an audience? I really feel like I learned that from watching Sam on the Spider-Man movies, where I was just very lucky to be there.
Man, it looks so old now.
Avi Rod,
crazy.
Just watching Avi, watching Laura Ziskin, the producer of that, watching Amy Pascal, who ran the studio at the time, and particularly Sam Raimi put those movies together. So now being in a position that Sam is back in the Marvel Universe and working for us on Doctor Strange, which, aside from Spider-Man, both Steve Ditko co-creations, was his favorite characters, is really quite remarkable and full circle for me personally from my journey at right. Marvel. But really, it's just exciting to get to watch Sam work again, and to see Sam Raimi put his Sam Raimi stamp on Doctor Strange, on the multiverse, on Marvel.
It will be interesting.
And for people who know what that stamp is,
yep.
They can be very excited. And for people who don't yet know what that stamp is, I can't wait for them to see this movie, be blown away by it, and go, what else has he done? And delve into Sam Raimi's filmography, which is one of the best of all time.
Army of Darkness, right? Yeah.
This yours?
Oh, this is great.
Who are you?
Yes, I mean, the death of
Ah.
Chad hit all of us extremely hard, and at the same time as it hit the world, because we didn't know either. Um, and there were all sorts of questions. And our first thought for many weeks afterwards had nothing to do with the movie. It had to do with him and his family and his wife and his legacy. And really we were looking to Ryan Coogler for guidance, as one frankly always should about almost everything in life. I'd recommend following Ryan Coogler for guidance. And having the discussions, which is essentially came down to continuing the legacy of Wakanda and continuing with that storyline in a very
Let's get them Wakanda emotes in the chat,
and yet still hopeful and fun and exciting way, which was difficult after losing Chad. And I will say that Ryan and our producer Nate Moore and the entire cast and our co-writer Joe Robert Cole have done some remarkable things in the story and the draft, and the team is assembling once again, and camera's role in the not too distant future on that. And it will be extremely emotional across the board, but I think they have something very special in mind.
When you love something, you fight for it. We're the ones who changed everything.
Yo, this was the hypest trailer we got this
The
year.
definition of phases often evolved with the phase, and often I leave up to writers and journalists to decide. That's for the film historians to tell us what the phases were about. Truthfully, phase 4 was always about continuing in new ways and new beginnings. Even with films that seemingly are concluding storylines, there are new beginnings within them, and that's what was most exciting to us about the opportunity to make shows for Disney Plus, about all of us at Marvel Studios choosing to continue past Endgame and past Far From Home and leaving the Infinity Saga behind to a new beginning,
which
and,
technically starts with WandaVision, right?
Is what people will be looking at Phase 4. I hope is having accomplished. But we're in the middle of it now, so remains to be seen. We don't take our foot off the gas. We don't take anything for granted, and we all work extremely hard to deliver.
Yeah. All right. That was a lot of that was a lot of talk, a lot of something without saying anything. Saying a lot of everything without saying anything specific. But it was fine. Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll upload this one to YouTube or not. We shall see. Well, here we are. We're in the middle of Phase 4. Phase 4 is going to be pretty long, isn't it? Like, we're looking at 2 years of content. It's going to be quite a road. You know, we all have our theories. I think if there's anything kind of to take away, and I've talked about this off camera, or off recordings, is there's anything to take away from this particular interview is kind of like, look, we all have our theories, but nothing is written in stone, right? People took the Loki finale certain ways as like, oh, okay, well, that's good because it's going to be this, it's going to be that way, it's going to be this way. Don't do that to yourself, because you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because I've always said it, is that fans, because people always ask me, what do I want, what do I expect from the next Marvel movie? What do I expect? What do I want to see in the next Marvel? I'm like, I don't want to see. I will leave that up to the creatives behind the scene to produce to me what they want to showcase, right? Because I've said this time and time again, nobody will ever make a better movie than the fans themselves. Because, and that's not to say that the movies are good, it's just that the fans essentially make their own perfect movie in their head. So if there's no way Hollywood can compete with that with the budget of your imagination and your headspace, right? Doctor Strange should have been in WandaVision. Mephisto should have been in WandaVision. Kang's gonna show up, and there's gonna be so many amazing Kangs all over. We don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen. But we can have some expectations. But expectations do not equal promises that they're gonna make it happen. And particularly with the next Spider-Man movie, No Way Home, right? No Way Home. So many people have already written in their mind, in their heads, that it's going to be essentially the first live-action Spider-Verse movie. Where I personally feel like if you're already logged into that sort of thought process, that that's what No Way Home's going to be, you're going to be severe. You're in store for a severe disappointment. When they finally do get that trailer out there, when they finally do get that movie out there, and then you're gonna be hating Marvel, hating Sony, like why didn't they make the perfect movie that I wanted to see, right? So just keep that. I'm just saying, just keep that in mind as we go further down the spiral of rumors and speculations, right? Because you can always really write the perfect movie in your head. But, and yeah, that I'll just leave it at that, because I was gonna also say something about Venom, and that's one of the reasons I'm so disappointed in Venom. But that's a whole nother conversation. We'll talk very, very soon. I'm out.